Man, how you doing?
I'm good. Life is interesting,
Okay, yeah.
to say the least. Since the last time we spoke, that was pre-COVID, wasn't it, John?
Maybe, yeah. That might be right. Yeah. I can't, it's a
So,
long time ago.
well, you published your book
Yes.
2022, right?
Uh, Something like that. It may have been into 21. Yeah.
Now, I'm absolutely amazed at the amount of research you did to put that classic piece of literature together. How long did you have to spend on the research end?
Ugh, Jeez. Um,
Sorry I brought it up.
no, man. I kind of was doing it unofficially, and then I did it officially, and the official part
Right.
was a full 3 years, maybe.
Because it appears to me, based on what I read at the beginning of the book, you really didn't have any collateral assistance. Like Marianne wouldn't say anything. Obviously, Jimmy Page wouldn't say anything. Kenneth, is Kenneth or was Kenneth.
Yeah.
So you had to basically do all this on your own, like from scratch.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it's Jimmy was the biggest bummer. I have a bunch of questions sort of about if you had any contact with Jimmy. Marianne just got over COVID when I finally got in touch with her, so she wasn't capable of, yeah, that
And
really
then since you and I have spoken, then Kenneth passed.
it was interesting when he passed that, Mick Jagger didn't say anything, Jimmy Page didn't say anything. Uh Being a testament sort of to the bridges he could burn. Let's just sweep this guy under the rug and not mention it.
I think in retrospect, if he would have gone into more like the mainstream, which
Mhm.
would have obviously meant an attitude adjustment on his part, but
Yeah.
he would have been like super, super successful in mainstream Hollywood.
Hmm.
And my thought was he could have done his independent work on the side, and then he would have made the money to be able to do what he really wanted to do, because that was the one difficulty he had. The money was always running short, and then he had to suspend something or do it differently. And, it's just must have been like beyond frustrating.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of questions, some stuff, if I could run them by you kind of fast-ish.
Blast away, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Page, did you see him a lot or did he come by and
Well, he came. I only met him one time when he came by to talk to Kenneth about doing the score
Mhm.
for the movie. And, him and I talked a little bit, but I didn't want to like talk to him like I'm a suck up fan and I just think you're awesome
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I just said, hi, how you doing? And he says, oh, I'm all right. Things are
Mhm.
good. And I think he had just bought the Equinox bookstore. And so he had tons of stuff. I was going to stop by the store, but I don't know what the end was with him and Kenneth.
Mhm.
And like you say, Kenneth has a way of um, taking out the blowtorch and slowly, the things fall apart.
Yep.
So I thought I don't want to get into a difficult situation. I used to see Jimmy a lot at this place called, I'm sure you know it. It's on Sunset and La Cienega, called the Rainbow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I used to hang out there a lot. And Jimmy was in there with, let's see, he was always with John Bonham, and he was always with Robert. I'd go to the Rainbow, and he was just surrounded by people. And I just thought, I'm not going to like invade his space. So we were never like friends or acquaintances. If you said today, "Oh, Jimmy, I was talking to Haydn Coote. Remember that guy you met at 120 Mount Street?" He'd say, "Yeah." He might hesitate for a moment, but he'd say, "Yeah." But yes, I never got to know Jimmy. I mean, I loved his music,
Yeah.
but I thought to walk up to him in LA and say, "Yeah, you remember me from that Kenneth Anger film?" And I thought, if he's got a bodyguard, I could get punched out or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
First Led Zeppelin concert I saw was at the Masonic Hall in downtown Toronto. I had a real disaster with drugs, so I thought I got to go to a place where they don't have this product,
Yeah.
because I mean
Okay.
I was just It's not that I was an addict, but I mean, I was, well, maybe I was, I don't know. But
Uh-huh.
I mean, I woke up in hospital in a straitjacket, and they
Okay.
were telling me stuff that sounded totally untrue. But I thought, well, if a doctor and a nurse and their staff are telling me this is what I did, this is how I was, I thought, I better pay attention. That was in September of '69. So I saw Led Zeppelin in August.
Hmm.
So then, of course, when I came out of the doldrums after they let me out of the hospital, I was born in Wales.
Hmm. Oh, okay.
So I thought, well, I'll go to the UK,
Hmm.
go visit some cousins, aunts, and uncles, and maybe I'll go up to London and see what's happening. I was there maybe 4 or 5 months, and then I bumped into Kenneth, and I was high on acid. I should have taken one tab instead of two, and I was just lit up, put it that way. Kenneth jumps out of a car, and he says, "Oh!" He says, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Is this guy a cop or what?"
Uh-huh.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I think you're the guy I'm looking for." And I thought, okay, as long as he seems to be a little delicate,
Uh-huh.
hopefully he doesn't have a black belt,
Uh-huh.
and we can talk for a little bit. But yeah, it was pretty wild.
Did he show you like footage?
Well, when I met Kenneth, okay, I'm high on acid.
Hmm.
When Kenneth talked me into going over to Mount Street, we're over there, and he says, "Well, let me show you some of my work."
Hmm.
He says, "Oh, I'm a film director, and I do this and I do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, blah blah blah," right? But he actually opened his wallet, as I
Okay.
recall, and he this is when we're out in Piccadilly. He opens up his wallet and he takes out a Walt Disney business card,
Okay.
and I'm like, "What?" And he took out a Jack Warner business card, and there was somebody, Cecil B. DeMille. I'm like, this is, I'm hallucinating. Okay, let's just go watch your work.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sitting there peeking, and then he plays what you're asking for, and I'm like, oh, I thought I'm either going to sit here, keep my mouth shut, and just zip it,
Uh-huh.
or I'm going to freak out and just jump out a window someplace.
Okay.
But I mean, it was like, well, come on over and see my work. Well, I wasn't expecting to see Invocation of My Demon Brother.
Hmm.
Wasn't, what was done of Lucifer Rising, but it was a freak show in my mind.
Hmm.
So then he shows me some others. Like, I mean, by
Do
the
you
time
remember liking it or just thinking like, yeah, I could do this kind of thing?
I'm thinking, well, if he pays me and I stop taking as much dope as I am, I
Hmm.
could probably maybe calmly get my way through it.
Hmm.
But yeah, it wasn't like I was dying to do it, or I thought, I can do this, or nothing like that. I was kind of looking at it from a financial point of view, and I thought, well, this guy's kind of like Hollywood. I didn't know how much money he had or didn't have.
I do have a question about your performance, and that is that like you almost do not blink. Did you get direction not to blink, or did you just instinctively kind of know you weren't supposed to?
Yeah, Kenneth told me not to. He said, "Do your best
Uh-huh.
not
Yeah.
to blink."
I had a question about the bath mirror that when you get in the tub. I was wondering if Kenneth talked about why the mirror was there, if you ask him about the mirror.
Little sidestep. That's how I met Marianne.
Okay.
So he said, you want to meet Marianne? She's here." And like that was on the night when I got there. And I
Okay.
said, "Okay, sure." We go into that bathroom, John, and it was surreal. She was in that bathtub
Okay.
with her arms up, and she was passed out,
Okay.
all the bath water was covered in rose petals. I mean, it was beautiful to look at,
Uh-huh.
but I thought this is incredibly weird. Like the girl could have drowned in here.
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you want to meet Marianne?" I was just, kind of cavalier. Sure. Yeah. Like, okay.
Hmm.
And it got there and I'm like, what?
Hmm.
But that mirror, I don't know if Robert got it from an auction in Chelsea, because it was like Bass Ales.
Hmm.
It was a beautiful mirror,
Yeah.
but why it was stuck in the bathroom like that, who knows? But I mean, you couldn't help but see yourself when you walked into the bathroom with that mirror.
Was Robert Fraser around ever? Did you meet him, or was he?
No, Groovy Bob was not to be found.
Okay. Yeah, he would have, because he left for India, and left in the apartment. You mentioned you did go to Externstein with the production, but that you didn't remember much about it. Do you remember if Jimmy was there for the Externstein?
Well, actually, in retrospect, John,
Okay.
because needless to say, we both had a few years since our last discussion.
Yeah.
And when we first got there, now Jimmy wasn't there that I'm aware of. I don't believe he was.
Okay.
But when we got there, I think Jimmy Vaughn was the guy that would arrange everything.
Yeah.
So we get there, get into this hotel, and I had some hash,
Mm-hmm.
which I was smoking by the cube back then. So I said, and Kenneth I don't know if it was Kenneth or Jimmy had the keys to a 450 Mercedes, kind of like not a limousine, but it was just like a sedan. So I thought, I wonder what it would be like to get into this thing, pedal to the metal,
Mm-hmm.
and see how fast it'll go down the Autobahn, because I know I won't get a ticket.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was going faster than me. And I ended up somewhere in the Black Forest, totally out of it. And I was like, it felt really eerie, but there's something, this isn't quite right. I mean, yeah, I was stoned, but I mean, I wasn't like a paranoid. I go back to the hotel, and then there was, I don't know if the fire truck was still there, but there was smoke all over the place. That day, I gave Marianne a new nickname, and it was Pyro. And she set the curtains on fire in this hotel.
Okay. Yeah.
So, needless to say, we were escorted out of the hotel, and then we had another hotel like right nearby.
Were you there for when she walked up the steps?
Oh yeah,
You were there
yeah, I
for
was
that?
there for all of it. But when
Did
you
she
asked me
walk down?
what did you do there? Um, I think I walked up the steps for whatever the reason. It's fine with me, of course. Kenneth decided just to cut me out, and he just had Marianne, there for pretty much the whole thing. But I
Okay.
was
But
there
he
for
did film you going up the steps then.
yeah.
Were you part of the robed? Did he film you? Double duty?
To be honest, John, I don't
Yeah.
recall. I might have been. We were there for, I think, 3 days. Yeah, I mean, because the place to me looked fascinating. I thought, wow, this is kind of like a Stonehenge in Germany of sorts. So I was running all up and down the rocks and just, looking at things and trying to figure it out. I wish I'd taken a camera with me, but I didn't.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was very unique. Marianne didn't want to talk to me as long as I was calling her Pyro, so I had to get off that train.
Mhm.
But then we went back to London.
Did you keep any stuff from the production, like costumes or anything like that? Because you mentioned
So
being into the coat, like thinking the coat was pretty cool. Do you remember Laura Jameson, who made the coat? Do you remember her being around or?
Laura Jameson, I met her a couple of times. There was another girl as well who had she looked like a Natasha. I forget her name.
Okay.
But yeah, I saw Laura a couple of times, but yeah, we didn't chat that I remember.
The robe that you wear, the color,
Right?
was that pre-made when you got there, or did she kind of fit you for that?
No, I think she made that. Well, there
Hmm. Yeah.
wasn't pre-made.
Did she make it specifically for you, or
Correct.
she did? Okay.
Yeah, because I was Lucifer there for 5 minutes.
Do you remember Kenneth filming her or some of the other, because there's some wild photos, people pushing down on your arms.
Yeah, that
Probably.
day, she probably was, being filmed, but it was that day was. I think Kenneth gave us a punch bowl full of acid and fruit juice, and we all went sideways. That day, John, Michael Cooper,
Mhm.
God bless him, right?
Okay.
He was so high,
Mm.
he was shooting for 5 or 6 hours, and he
Mhm.
forgot to take the lens cover off. I really liked Michael. He was just a cool cat and
Yeah.
pretty humble. I mean, he knew all the people, but he wasn't braggadocio about it.
Do you remember the blonde guy who's kind of in a blue and gold robe? Uh,
Yeah, he was the other one, Natasha's boyfriend.
okay.
Um, Forget his name. Was it Nick?
Yeah.
I was born about 5 miles from where um, Jimmy and Robert wrote Led Zeppelin 4. But yeah, after after Kenneth told me what he said he was going to do to me, then things started going a bit south for people in the Zeppelin corner as well. And I'm like, this is serious. This is dangerous. That was a really funny situation when I'm sitting on what I think was Aleister Crowley's bed.
Mm-hmm.
It was a small bed,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm lying on with the robe on it.
Yeah.
Well, Kenneth told me that that used to belong to Aleister Crowley. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, fine, right? Didn't mean much. So I come into the apartment. I was living there at the time. Kenneth said, "Well, it'd be better if you moved here," because really what he meant was if you move here, and then I feed you and take care of everything, I don't have to pay you. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, he didn't say that, but that's kind of how it worked out. That's fine. Because before I moved in with Kenneth, me and my girlfriend, I was living about 3 doors away from where that movie was shot in performance
Mm-hmm.
in Palace Square. I thought that movie was very well done, but it was so British. Didn't make a hit in the States, right? But I'm sitting on that bed, and as I approached it, there was an envelope, about just a letter size envelope with a sealed an
Yep.
indentation, and it said
Like a
San
seal.
Quentin Federal Prison, but it was already opened.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up the envelope, opened it, took out this letter, and I think Bobby was telling Kenneth he was really sorry. He was apologizing for the way it went,
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. And Kenneth had told me stories about Bobby. He stole the movie, and Kenneth gave him $500 to go buy a guitar. Ends up in Mexico, buys like a green garbage bag full of pot.
He told the story a lot, and I don't know how true it actually is. When that film footage was stolen, initially it had nothing to do with Bobby, and it seemed to
Right.
morph in Kenneth's head into Bobby stole the footage.
I had a conversation with Kenneth. Kenneth, totally. It was the scariest 10 minutes I've ever had in my life, and I kid
Okay,
you
yeah.
not.
No, I
I
believe
mean,
it. Yeah.
when he said, "What's going to happen to me?"
Mm-hmm.
would make what happened to Bobby look like a visit to Disney World. I just come over from Canada. I heard about the Manson killings, but Bobby Beausoleil to me was a non-player. Didn't never heard of him.
Yeah.
So then Kenneth told me what he told me about Bobby, and he said it's going to be worse for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I moved to LA
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because people can say what they want about, well, is there good, is there evil, is there a God, is there a devil? Yeah, there is.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that was Kenneth, but the fact is, John, like lately, there's been all this talk about UFOs, right? People say, oh, they're extraterrestrials. They come from another planet. No, they haven't. They've been here the whole time. They
Uh-huh.
don't come from another dimension. They come from an intra dimension. So you and I right now, we're in basically a two-dimensional scenario. We can see each other on the screen, right? And we got length and width. That's about it. If we were in live, then there's more dimensions. But we have about 10 dimensions in total. But human beings have length, breadth, width, and the other dimension is sound.
Mm-hmm.
Sound. So we have dimensions and we have sound. So it makes it a four-dimensional world. But the reason I'm sharing that with you is at some point, Kenneth decides he sees a UFO, and that was part of the film, and this, that, and the other. If you look at Echernstein, you look at the pyramids in Egypt, you look at Stonehenge, Easter Island. Where did all this technology come from, and who was big enough with no equipment to be able to put all these items together? Well, that was called advanced technology. So there was fallen angel technology. You look at like in Mexico, where I am, you got these huge pyramids.
I'm glad you mentioned Mexico because Mexico is not really represented in the final cut, like with the pyramids in Mexico and everything. He did show a work print at one point with some of the solar deities or something from
Yeah,
Aztec mythology. To any of that ring a bell or him talking
no,
about?
never saw it. No.
Okay. Were you there till about 75, something like that, or
74.
74? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Zeppelin's big problem started in 75 with the car accident. Do you remember what was kind of going bad in 74 or?
Well, Jimmy and Kenneth were not getting along.
Okay.
Uh,
That
Zeppelin,
early?
Jimmy, has a band.
Yeah.
That's really what he does.
Yep. Yeah.
He's not working for Kenneth Anger because he wants to get into the film business. But Kenneth, could be very bossy. You got two alphas, and one is in cinematography, the other one's, but they're both artists,
Mm-hmm.
but they're different ends of the spectrum. So, Jimmy obviously is the leader of Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
Kenneth Anger is the leader of Kenneth Anger, and there you go.
Now, did you ever make it up to Boleskine?
I was going to go up there, um, but once again, I was freaked out because
Yeah.
after Kenneth said, this is what's going to happen to you, and I
Yeah.
had the letter, and there's the letter of Bobby in clearly in San Quentin. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a
Yeah.
real letter, and I'm going, what the fudge? And I was convinced that if things went sideways with me and Kenneth, he was going to curse me, and God knows where, what would have happened. So I thought Boleskine sounds really cool. It's up in Scotland, and you know, maybe I'll bump into the Loch Ness monster. We'll have a few pints,
Hmm.
But I just, if there was a way for it to go wrong, I would have discovered it. So I said no. When Jimmy first got the house, this
Hmm.
is funny, John. He invited Kenneth along to purge
Hmm.
the house of evil spirits,
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
which I thought that's interesting. It's kind of like Casper the Ghost kicking, I don't know,
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse out of the house. Like,
Yeah. Crowley had done some kind of invocation there, and he didn't do the banishing ritual, so the whatever he invoked was still around.
well, with Kenneth, he wanted to kind of portray that he was kind of above Satanism. He was
Yeah.
more Luciferian. Well, the
Yeah.
bottom line is they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And
He had a duality in himself,
there
clearly.
you go.
Do you remember I know the do you remember anything about the guys in the red shirts and the black pants? There's also some photos of Leslie in the same outfit.
Well, on that day, I was present in body, but absent in
Uh-huh. Yeah.
spirit
Yeah.
and clarity. Yeah, I was a goner that day.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It looks like Marianne was having fun as well, kind of.
She, God bless her. She was just, for obvious reasons, not a happy camper
Hmm.
during that time in her life.
Hmm.
Because I don't know. I mean, she was in and out of the apartment or the flat, if you will. But I mean, she was homeless for 2 years, sleeping under, I think it was Blackfriars Bridge. I honestly don't remember her laughing once.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, because yeah, she looks pretty happy in some of those photos that are
Yeah.
where she's zooming across the room kind of thing. Although she looks pretty angry at the kid. Do you remember anything about the young girl that was hired to be in the film?
No, I think she was supposed to play a little Marianne. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to say, just like in a minute like that I've left out or anything you remember or
You know pretty much most of my story with Kenneth, but anything I can do to help you, be more than happy to.
great,
Uh,
thank you. Yeah.
well, for sure.